Hi everybody, welcome to Shiver Speaks. As today is the last day of July, we're going to be talking about our artist of the month, which this month is Stephen King. Stephen King was born in Portland, Maine on September 21st, 1947. King says he started writing when he was about 6 or 7, just copying panels out of comic books, making up his own stories. Film was also a major influence. He loved movies from the start, so when he started to write, he had a tendency to write in images because that was all he really knew. King recalls showing his mother a story he copied out of a comic book, and she responded, "I bet you could do better, write one of your own." He recalls an immense feeling of the possibility at the idea, as if he'd been ushered into a vast building filled with closed doors and had been given the key to open any he liked. King was a voracious reader in his youth. He read everything from Nancy Drew to Psycho, but the first real inspiration for him was Lord of the Flies. King attended the University of Maine at Orono in 1966. While there, he wrote for the student newspaper, the Maine Campus, and found mentors in the professors of Edward Holmes and Burton Halton. King sold his first professional short story, The Glass Floor, to Startling Mystery Stories in 1967 while still in college, and he sold other short stories to magazines like the Cavalier. King participated in a writing workshop organized by Halton where he fell in love with Tabitha Spruce. He graduated in 1970 with a Bachelor of Arts in English, and his daughter Naomi was born that year. King and Spruce wed in 1971, and he began teaching at a local high school. This is when he began writing full-length novels. King recalls the origin of his debut novel, Carrie. Two unrelated stories, adolescent cruelty and telekinesis coming together. It began as a short story intended for Cavalier, but he tossed the first 3 pages in the trash, and his wife Tabitha recovered them, saying she wanted to know what happened next. He followed her advice and expanded it into a novel. She told him, "You've got something here, I really think you do." Carrie is the story of Carrie White, a high school student with latent and then, as the novel progresses, developing telekinetic powers. It's brutal in places, affecting the others. Carrie's relationship with her almost hysterically religious mother being a particularly damaged one, and gory in even more. The review of Carrie in the New York Times noted that King does more than tell a story. He is a school teacher himself, and he gets into Carrie's mind as well as into the minds of her classmates. King was teaching Dracula to high school students and wondered what would happen if old world vampires came to a small New England town. This was the germ of Salem's Lot, which King called Peyton's Place meets Dracula. King's mother died from cancer around the time that Salem's Lot was published. After his mother's death, King and his family moved to Colorado, and he paid a visit to the Stanley Hotel, which provided the basis for The Shining, an alcoholic writer and his family taking care of a hotel for the winter. King's family returned to Maine in 1975, where he completed The Stand, an apocalyptic novel about a pandemic and its aftermath. King recalls that it was the novel that took him the longest to write, and that it's also one of my longtime readers liked the best. In 1977, the Kings, with the addition of Owen Phillip, their third and youngest child, traveled briefly to England. They returned to Maine that fall, and King began teaching creative writing at the University of Maine. The courses he taught on horror provided the basis for his first nonfiction book, Danse Macabre, and in 1979 he published The Dead Zone, about an ordinary man gifted with second sight. It was the first of his novels to take place in Castle Rock, Maine. King later reflected that with The Dead Zone, he, quote, really hit his stride. King struggled with addiction through the decade of 70s to 80s and often wrote under the influence of cocaine and alcohol. He says he barely remembers writing Cujo. In 1983, he published Christine, and later that year he published Pet Sematary, which he had written in the late 1970s when his family was living near a highway that used up a lot of animals, as one of his neighbors put it. His daughter's cat was killed, and they buried it in a pet cemetery built by the local children. King imagined a burial ground beyond that could raise the dead more imperfectly than usual. He then recalls a different interview and says, "I would be asked, what happened in your childhood that makes you want to write these terrible things? I couldn't think of any real answer to that, and I thought to myself, why don't you write a final exam of horror? Put all of the monsters that everyone was afraid of as a kid. Put in Frankenstein, werewolf, vampire, mummy, giant creatures that eat up New York. Put them all in there. These influences coalesced into It, a shape-shifting monster that takes the form of its victims' fears and haunts the town of Derry, Maine. He said he thought he was done writing about monsters, but wanted to bring all the monsters in one last time and call it It. It won the August Derleth Award in 1987. Ever since then, King has still been writing, even presently. In 2009, he began collaborating with his son Joe Hill on a number of short stories and comics, all published under Joe Hill's own comic line, Hill House Comics. In 2010, he wrote Dr. Sleep. In 2014, he won the Edgar Allan Poe Award for Mr. Mercedes. And in 2018, he wrote The Outsider. He has a number of film adaptations from the 90s for his short stories, the huge success of It as a film in 1990, the hate of the original Shining film that Stanley Kubrick produced, the flop of Maximum Overdrive that King directed himself while on cocaine, and a number of successful movies and TV shows since, including my favorites, The Outsider, Castle Rock, Stand, all streaming now on Max, Hulu, Paramount Plus, respectively. Whether you're a fan of his stories or not, Stephen King has made a gigantic impact in the horror world. He propelled a lot of the storytelling and novels and authors that we love and know today. He was truly one of the originators, if not the originator, of modern horror. And again, whether you like his stories or not, respect all over this guy. I am a big fan of the movies. I think the stories are a little too long for my patience, but that's my own thing. I love all of the Joe Hill comics. I'm a big fan of Hill House comic books. And yeah, that is our history on Stephen King. So put in the comments, what is your favorite movie, story, TV show of Stephen King's? What do you think about him and his legacy that he's about to leave behind? Thanks as always for listening. I am now on Twitch, so if you want to watch me play some video games, go to twitch.tv/GMGROX and you'll be able to find me. I will be playing some Dead by Daylight. I will be playing some other horror games. I also play The Sims every once in a while for fun. So if you want to see my Sim family, let me know. But hope to see you soon. Check out the meetup page for more events, and I will see you there.